The morning hadn't even fully begun, yet the world already felt unbearably heavy. The diner was nearly empty, the kind of quiet that made every clatter of a spoon sound like it echoed through time itself. And that was when he noticed her, standing beside his booth, pale, hollow-eyed, and trying desperately to look fine. She wore a smile that trembled at the edges, an expression so forced it almost hurt to look at. Something inside him, the part of him that had learned to recognize pain in others because he lived with his own every single day, whispered urgently that she wasn't okay. Ask her. And so, with the courage that comes from empathy rather than confidence, he did. He asked her if she was okay. What she answered, barely above a whisper, made his world stop cold. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unseen battles people fight every day, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. His name was Mark, a 33-year-old single father who had been learning parenthood by stumbling forward in the dark ever since his wife died 3 years earlier. His son, Lucas, now 6, was the bright thread stitching Mark's life together. But even light has shadow, and Mark carried his own, a grief that lingered in his bones and a fear that he wasn't enough, that he would never be enough for Lucas. He didn't sleep well, worked long hours, and still found himself constantly falling behind. But on that morning, he had promised Lucas breakfast out, a small treat before school, something to break the monotony of their routine and remind them both that life still had gentle moments. The diner was an old-school place, gleaming chrome and faded turquoise booths, a place where regulars always came but somehow emptier today than usual. As Mark sat with Lucas coloring quietly beside him, he noticed the waitress approaching. She was young, mid-20s maybe, with soft waves of brown hair and eyes that looked like they once sparkled but hadn't in a long time. Her name tag said Eva, but the name didn't matter as much as the exhaustion written into her posture. She moved like someone carrying invisible weights nobody else bothered to see. When she greeted them, her voice caught on its own words. Mark didn't know her, but something inside him recognized that struggle. He'd seen that same brittle strength in his own mirror. And without giving himself time to rethink it, without the fear of awkwardness stopping him, he asked softly if she was okay. It wasn't a dramatic question. It wasn't loud or prying. It was simply human. Her reaction wasn't what he expected. She froze for a heartbeat, her composure cracking just enough for the truth to slip through. She swallowed hard, looked down, and whispered, "No. But thank you for asking." Just 6 words. Yet they carried a world of pain. Mark didn't know what to do. Should he say something? Should he pretend he didn't notice? He opened his mouth, searching for the right words, but Eva had already stepped away, her shoulders shaking as she disappeared behind the counter. Throughout breakfast, he found himself glancing toward her, watching as she tried to pull herself together. She poured coffee for an elderly man but spilled a bit on the table, apologizing frantically. She fumbled with the register. She seemed lost in thoughts that drained her spirit. Lucas, perceptive in the innocent way children sometimes are, tugged on Mark's sleeve and whispered that the lady looked sad. Mark nodded, unsure how to explain that adults could be sad for complicated reasons children shouldn't have to understand yet. By the time the bill arrived, Eva's hands were trembling. Mark noticed red marks on her arm, nothing alarming, but enough to hint that life wasn't being gentle with her. Something inside him refused to let her pain dissolve into the anonymity of a stranger's story he would forget. Mark wasn't a hero or someone with extra time. He was a man barely making it through his own battles. But maybe that's why he cared. People in pain recognize each other. He left a larger tip than he could reasonably afford, and under the receipt, he wrote a simple note: "If you ever need someone to talk to, you're not alone." He didn't expect anything. Didn't even expect her to read it. But she did. As he and Lucas reached the door, Eva hurried after them. Her voice cracked as she thanked him, not for the money, but for noticing her, for seeing something no one else seemed to. She admitted that she'd been going through a rough time, her mother's illness, a breakup that left her homeless for a month, and the pressure of working multiple shifts just to stay afloat. She apologized for burdening him with her truth, but Mark shook his head. He didn't mind. In fact, he admired her courage to speak it out loud. After that morning, Mark and Lucas started stopping by the diner once or twice a week. Not always for food, sometimes just for coffee and company. Eva seemed to slowly regain her color, her smile growing less forced each time they saw her. Mark didn't flirt with her or push boundaries. He didn't want anything from her except to remind her that people cared, that she wasn't invisible. In turn, she made Lucas laugh, bringing him extra crayons or showing him how to fold napkins into little animals. Lucas adored her, calling the diner Eva's place. Over time, Mark learned more about her life, how she had been taking care of her mother alone, juggling bills she couldn't pay, and dreaming of going back to school one day, but feeling trapped by circumstances too heavy to escape. Mark understood that feeling all too well. He shared with her pieces of his own life, the loss of his wife, the overwhelming responsibility of raising Lucas alone, and the nights he felt like he was failing. Eva listened with compassion, and in those quiet conversations, both found a strange comfort in each other's honesty. Then one evening, months later, everything changed. Mark walked into the diner and found Eva sitting alone in a booth, her apron folded beside her, tears streaking down her face. She looked up at him with a desperate expression, like she didn't know whether to run or collapse. Mark sat beside her, and she told him the news her mother's doctor had delivered earlier. Her mother needed a surgery Eva couldn't afford. Insurance complications, bills overdue, everything spiraling at once. She said she felt helpless, like she was drowning. Mark remembered that feeling well, the helplessness when he lost his wife. He knew exactly how terrifying it was. He took a deep breath and did something brave, something he wasn't sure he had the right to do. He told her she wasn't alone, that he would help however he could. Maybe not financially, not much, anyway, but with support, rides to appointments, watching her mother when she needed rest. Eva protested, saying she didn't want to impose. But Mark insisted, explaining that people needed each other, that kindness wasn't a burden, it was a bridge. After a lifetime of trying to stand alone, Eva finally allowed herself to accept help. Slowly, their lives intertwined. Mark helped mother and daughter get to appointments, cooked meals for them when Eva worked late shifts, and even fixed a broken cabinet in their kitchen. Eva, in turn, became part of Mark and Lucas' life, spending afternoons with them at the park, helping Lucas with school projects, and bringing warmth back into a home that had long felt cold. Mark didn't expect anything to come of it romantically. In fact, he tried not to think about that possibility. His heart was fragile, and he assumed hers was too. But love has a way of sneaking into the quiet spaces created by compassion. It grew slowly, without grand gestures or declarations, just in the way Eva smiled at Lucas, and the way Mark's eyes softened when he saw her reading to him on the couch. One chilly evening, after Lucas fell asleep on her shoulder during a movie, Mark realized he hadn't felt this kind of peace in years. And Eva, brushing a curl from Lucas's forehead, whispered that his home felt like a place she didn't want to leave. They didn't rush anything. Life was still messy, bills, hospital visits, work shifts, grief that resurfaced sometimes without warning. But they faced it all together. When Eva's mother finally got the surgery she needed, thanks to a community fundraiser Mark helped organize, Eva broke down in his arms, sobbing with relief and gratitude. In that moment, she told him that his simple question months ago saved her more than he knew. The diner became a symbol in their story, the place where two broken people found the courage to connect. One quiet morning, sitting at the same booth where it all began, Mark realized he was no longer just surviving, he was living again. And Eva realized she no longer felt like a burden, but a person worthy of love and care. Sometimes the smallest gestures, a gentle question, a genuine glance, a handwritten note, create ripples that save lives. Mark once asked if she was okay. Eva now asked him the same every day, not out of obligation, but love. And every day, both found new reasons to be grateful that kindness had pulled their two worlds together. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment to help it reach more people who might need a reminder that compassion still matters. Before the story ends, tell us in the comments, has a small act of kindness ever changed your life? In the end, their story wasn't about grand miracles, it was about two people who refused to let each other fall through the cracks. A single dad and a weary waitress, both carrying their own scars, who discovered that healing often begins with 4 simple words, "Are you okay?"